it's going to be interesting. But bring in our second guest, and he needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. Yeah, I'm going to give him one anyways. Good friend of mine, a good friend of the show, Commando Dave. Good morning, Commando.
Hey, good morning, Insider Steve. What you know, Bo?
I know very little, Dave. You know this.
Come on now.
Which is why I brought him as my co-host, because I was figuring when I was looking for a co-host, I was looking for a guy that knew very little about sports, but had a good personality.
Well, if that's the case, then it worked out because you're a guy that insider and knows about sports. No question about that. But Bo knows sports. There's no question about that. Come on, let's keep it real.
Oh yeah, dude. Of course, yeah. Oh yeah. Sports since the late 50s when he was doing Pepsi commercials. So, just out of curiosity, Dave, did you happen to listen to Steve Sandmeyer just a couple seconds ago?
Oh yeah, of course. I'm a big Sandman fan from way back.
Well, it was quite interesting that some of the things that he was saying, and the first question that I laid to him, I'm going to lay to you as well too. Basically from the turning point for me seems to be that rally that was down at Pioneer Square, and from that day to where we are now, it seems like the anxiety level really has definitely picked up a little bit because there's no one clear way how this vote is going to go. And it seems that the skepticism has creeped in more so on the arena for the that are for. And it seems like they have done their job now. And it's funny to me because you would think that as we get closer, the arena, the fans that are for the arena, their voice would probably most typically would kind of drown out the skepticism, but that's not the way this is. It just seems to me that the arena opponents have just cast enough shadow of a doubt where it almost seems like it's when it rains it pours.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Steve. And to me, it makes the point, and all the more that I've been making for over a year. Key Arena is the solution, and why I have been saying that it really comes down, guys. Politically, Key Arena is the solution, because who's going to be against building a new arena at the site of the 41 years of Seattle Sonics history that we've all been lamenting for 4 years, that upgrades the Seattle Center, that really takes the Seattle Center into the next 50, which is the celebration this year of the 50th anniversary of the World's Fair. It restores the economic loss there in Lower Queen Anne and the rest of Queen Anne, quite frankly, by bringing an arena back to Seattle Center. And then politically, if you go back to SeattleSonicsMIA.com, listen to some of the videos I put out the past year, ever since they had the H206 game at Key Arena, my take was, didn't it feel good being back in Key Arena watching NBA ballers ball? And from there, when the legislation was going to be proposed by Representative Mike Hope down in Olympia, I have been saying politically, Key Arena makes the most sense, because no one in this city is going to be against upgrading the center of Seattle. And who's going to be against that? So that's the problem here, you guys. The problem is it's not the arena, it's the location. And I think everyone that's against it right now would be, the majority of them, of course they're going to be stragglers, but the majority of them would be all for it if it was for the enhancement of Seattle Center in general and the city of Seattle overall. That's the problem. I even put out a video that said Key Arena is the problem and the solution. So.
Well, and from my working with you for over the last year, I know that you've been a staunch supporter of the Key Arena site. We've even talked about Blueprint, because the one certain things because obviously the size that would need.
Right.
But my question to you specifically is a little bit about that skepticism, and especially when it comes to some of these Seattle City Council members who maybe feel slighted that the arena wasn't the solution, that the Soto location is Hansen has been staunch in his saying like this is where this thing makes sense, not up at Key Arena. Traffic wise, it's easier it's easier accessible to the I-90 I-5 corridor right there. There's the light rail right there. There's heavy rail. There's port. I mean, to him that's where it makes sense. And I'm kind of curious about for you to ask this question for you about maybe the skepticism from some of these council members that think, okay, well, he didn't take the Key Arena. This is where we want it, and maybe it's an issue. Maybe it's an issue of spite. That some of the skepticism has started creeping out a little bit in the Seattle City Council.
Well, you're making some excellent points as always, Insider Steve.
Yeah.
And
I'm on 3 cups of coffee. So.
well, that becomes what you're bringing up becomes the unfortunate, again, going back to the politics of the thing. The Seattle City Council, as we know, was the last line of defense back 4 years ago, July 14th, 2008, when they approved the Memorandum of Understanding settlement agreement between the City of Seattle and the OK Corral crew dated July 2nd, 2008, that I have been harping on along with Key Arena is the solution, because in that city council meeting, that was legislation that they passed. This is not just something that that I've been harping on about paragraph 6 in the Memorandum of Understanding, which calls for a renovated Key Arena, by which the contractual terms that a team coming back to Seattle can be called the Sonics lock, stock, and barrel. They voted on that legislation unanimously. There's 7 members that are currently on the city council that unanimously voted for that. And if you go to SeattleSonicsMIA.com, you'll see I've been putting out a series called SONICSBAIT trailers that I have been, you talked about guys that break down game film. I have broken down, I'm in the process, I should say, of breaking down this entire 25-minute city council meeting, speaker by speaker. Again, go to the website, you'll see what I'm talking about, or the Facebook page, Sonics MIA. But my point is, to your point, Steve, it's almost maddening listening to the commentary and the discussion talking about the legislation before them, and it's overwhelmingly clear that not one, except for one council member, Bruce Harrell, who at least admitted that he's bringing himself up to speed for about the last hour before the meeting. The meeting starts off with any questions on the proposed legislation. Yeah, well, wish we had time to read it. I mean, and then you listen to all the council members speaking on the legislation, and this, by virtue of the discussion that is brought forth in that meeting, you knew then, well, we know now even, look, in retrospect, they did not have a clear understanding of the ramifications of what they were about to approve. And so now we fast forward 4 years, and these are the same individuals that now, as you bring up, an excellent point, are as much uninformed on what the real issues are as it relates to putting an arena anywhere, quite frankly. So that becomes the maddening part, because there are a number of political entanglements that the Soto location created. I mean, look at me. I'm a sports fan. I'm a Seattle sports fan activist, and I'm a realer than real deal Holyfield Seattle Supersonics fan. However, I do not want an arena in Soto. I want an arena. I just don't want an arena in Soto. And the Sonics fan in me, first and foremost, Soto is Howard Schultz's neighborhood. I do not want as a Sonics fan, I do not want Howard Schultz to have the vindication of being able to stand up in his headquarters from any location, look out on a sunny day with that smug look on his face, and feel vindicated that Key Arena didn't work. See, there I told you, it proves that Key Arena didn't work, and to reward me, they've put an arena down here in my neighborhood. It drives me crazy. So the again, it just shows the political entanglements that the Soto location brought up, whereas I thought, and I still maintain, doing it for Key Arena, if you're talking about doing something for the community first and foremost, well, Seattle Center has been falling apart. Brian Robinson made the point back on Dory Monson's show, September 25th, 2007. It's on SeattleSonicsMIA.com for anyone who wants to see it, that the components, as you mentioned, Steve, at Seattle Center can be shifted around to make an arena work. And now talking about political entanglements, here's a guy who headed up an organization called Save Our Sonics, along with the SonicSBAIT guys, who are call themselves the Seattle Sonics Historical Preservation Society, yet I am the only one really. SeattleSonicsMIA.com is the only website on the internet advocating for the return of the Sonics to Seattle, with all due respect to the Seattle, or the Sonics Arena, whatever that thing's called, contractually. How many times I have to say it? It's out of order.
Has Chris Hansen acknowledged the MOU from 2008 in any speech that he's done on anything that he's written? Has he addressed the MOU about the Key Arena remodel?
Not at all. In my estimation, he's poo-pooed the Key Arena option with some very weak excuses. First and foremost, that it would cost too much. Well, we're already talking about $500 million, right? And if you can't build, tear down Key Arena in this economy, if you can't tear down Key Arena and rebuild it for $500 million, then, in the words of Eddie Murphy, something really wrong is happening here, baby. The second thing he talks about is the traffic, which I go back to, what if this had never happened? What if the 41 years of Seattle Sonics history was not snatched away by the OK Corral crew? Well, the Seattle Sonics would have played the last, this past season at Key Arena, and the traffic would have been the exact same as the traffic has always been. Not to mention, one of the political entanglements down there in Soto is the road improvements that were foregone for diverting, that money over to the Mercer mess. So for him to say that, use a, weak excuse, in my estimation, of the traffic, it just doesn't wash with me. I mean, it's as ridiculous as people using the traffic down in Soto, quite frankly. And then the third thing that he says, as far as the Key Arena, that you have to have an alternate site to play, a temporary site, and there's no other sites, suitable in the area, where, in '94 the Tacoma Dome proved itself sufficient, if you will. And so the thing is, and to your question, no one has asked him. That's the thing about it. He keeps getting all these different questions, or questions asked different ways, the same question asked in a variety of ways, and then even just some ridiculous questions, but no one, and this is the thing I don't understand, and it goes back to the politics of it, there's no question about that in my mind. I've been putting out these questions on Facebook, and everyone from Bring Back Our Sonics page to Arena page this, or Sonics page that, or SONICSBAIT, or this, that, and the other. I'm putting the information out there, and no one is really challenging the Seattle Times editorial board, or whoever sports host that is mad that these questions are being answered. I'm putting out the questions that aren't being answered, that really need to be asked. And so, no, I haven't heard him address the MOU. It goes back to the mayor, in my estimation, who must understand that his predecessor authorized this settlement and this MOU, and that the Seattle City Council then approved it into law as passed in the legislation, and that's where this whole thing starts. But for some, well, it's not for some reason. Again, because of political reasons now, that thing is just being swept underneath the carpet. When in fact, it's the MOU from 2008 that Chris Hansen's proposed MOU must be compliant with, and not Initiative 91 from the onset.
Before I let you go, I'm going to put you under the gun, much like I put Sandmeyer under the gun, and I'm going to ask you point blank. We're just a little under 2 weeks away from the dual council vote on Chris Hansen's Soto Arena proposal. Does this thing pass? Will the Seattle Supersonics be playing in a new building in Soto come 2014, 2015? Does this measure pass?
Well, your question is somewhat loaded, because you followed up a question, does this pass with, will the Seattle Supersonics be playing in Soto? And if you've been listening to what I'm saying, as you have been listening closely to what I'm saying, I mean, I know this becomes the funny thing about it. The term Seattle Sonics and Seattle NBA have been used, synonymously and interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. So if it did pass and an arena was built in Soto, then the Seattle Supersonics would not be playing in it by virtue of, you could not call the team the Sonics based on paragraph 6 of the MOU dated July 2nd, 2008, and approved into law 12 days later by the Seattle City Council. So that answers the second part of your question. Going back to the first part of the question, because this thing comes down to politics, because I'm breaking down this game film, so to speak, in a game film fashion of the Seattle City Council, and I'm hearing a lot of the rhetoric 4 years later, i.e. the storm this, the storm that, and that type of thing, and just hearing the City Councilwoman Jean Godin on with Softy the other day make you want to just, do a cowardly lion in The Wizard of Oz and just run and jump out of a window, based on the responses that she was giving him, that she wasn't even aware as she was on the City Council 4 years ago when the Sonics, when they voted to release the Sonics. So based on what I see, what I'm hearing, the forces that are now really rising up with this attorney, the environmental attorney that's popped up, Chris Van Dyke has reared his political bald head. The port, you don't ever know what's going on behind the scenes. You're reading all these things about city council members may want to run for mayor and that type of thing. I say it's not going to pass. The political entanglement is too great. And to that end, said it a year ago, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just being what I've always been since 1999. The point man of the fans revolution at WeTheFans.com, the official sports fan union. Calling it as I see it.
Oh, it's all. You know what? If you're not going to pat yourself on the back, Dave, I'm going to go ahead. You've done a fantastic job breaking down the battle of the MOUs and the Seattle City Council, and for those that don't have all the facts, go ahead and check out SONICSMIA.com. SeattleSonicsMIA.com, Insider Steve. SeattleSonicsMIA.com. SONICSMIA. My apologies, I stand.
It's all right.
Okay, Dave. We're going to let you go. You have a fantastic afternoon. We'll see you next week as we get one week closer to the deadline. We'll have you on next week, and we'll talk about some new developments if they do happen.
Stay tuned to the Sonics MIA campaign on Facebook. I got some very compelling stuff coming out later today, you guys. Bo, I know what you know. Insider Steve, you're my man. Good talking to you guys.
Absolutely. We appreciate you having on.
Thank you, buddy.
That was Commando Dave, point man of the Fans Revolution, Seattle Sonics SONICSMIA.com, and I did stand corrected. I just thought it was SONICSMIA.com. But he corrected me quite well right there.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. When we come back, we're gonna dive into our NFL Spotlight series. The NFC North goes under the microscope. You know how I feel about this division, Bo. The Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
I think that explains it all. We'll be back in just a few seconds. So stay tuned. This is the show with Steve and Bo on the Fantasy Sideline Network.
And we'll be back.
Do you know who I am? I made my bones when you were going out with cheerleaders.
That's Commando Dave, wasn't it?
He ought to have his own show.
Have you? Yeah, no kidding.